Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 303 of the Canadian Football Countdown, a proud member of the Canadian Football Podcast Network and the Alternative Football Network. Ryan and Trey here with you this evening. Back again. Tried out a new format last week. Rave reviews, lots of positive comments about it. So we're back with the same thing again. Your Week 15 2025 CFL preview, primarily focused on CFL fantasy and betting picks. We're going to go through and draft our game zone lineups again for this week, and then we'll make our picks against the spread, the over-under. Take your comments and questions in the live chat throughout the night as well. Thanks to presenting sponsor Game Time TV, which you can learn more at GameTimeTV.ca or Facebook.com/GameTimeTVMB. Let's welcome in the other half of the duo here tonight. Trey, how you doing this Wednesday evening?
I'm doing pretty good, man. I'm ready for a big sports weekend. Jays are getting close here. Big UFC boxing, horse racing, football. I'm good. You?
Awesome.
How are you doing, man?
I'm doing good as well. First week of NFL football in the books. Some great games there as well. Some great CFL games this past weekend. A couple pretty crazy ones. Great finishes. So yeah, good football all around. We're 1 week in and I hate everything about NFL fantasy and question why I play. And another week, 14 weeks of CFL in and I question why I play that as well. After some frustrating results this week, which we'll get into here shortly. But no, I'm doing great. Excited to chat through some CFL football here again tonight. Before we go any further, we do want to acknowledge that the Canadian Football Countdown is brought to you from Treaty 1 territory, traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Ojibwe, Dakota, and Dene peoples, the homeland of the Métis Nation, as well as from Treaty 4 territory, traditional territory of the Cree, Saulteaux, Dakota, Lakota, Nakota, and Métis Nation. Also, if you're looking for additional content between these episodes we release every week, make sure you check out our Discord community. There is a link in the episode description. It's free to join us over there. We're constantly talking through live CFL game chats, CFL fantasy, lots of NFL chatter going on with the kickoff this weekend as well. People watching different games, sharing different info back and forth there. So the Discord's the place to be if you enjoy chatting with us and other members of the CFL community. Link in the episode description. Free to join us in the Discord. All right, let's get into it. Let's start off with the CFL fantasy side of things, and we'll get into the betting picks later on in the show. As we did last week, quick run through maybe of some of the injuries going on, the most notable notes for CFL fantasy this week. Back to was last week? No, 2 weeks ago was a 3-game week. Last week was 4 games. This week is 4 games again, 2 a Friday night, 2 Saturday games. And a lot of news at the quarterback position this week. Our big topic last week at the end of the show, Nick Arbuckle, Chad Kelly, who's going to start for the Argos. It is Nick Arbuckle again this week. Kelly is supposedly still week to week, so, maybe a couple more weeks. But Ryan Dinwiddie also did call him the franchise quarterback, so it sounds like it could be Kelly's room eventually, but Arbuckle gets the start for now. I don't think we need to rehash what we said at the end of last week. I think it still applies. If you want to, go back, check out the previous episode. Trey and I were chatting at length about who we would prefer to start. And spoiler alert, we both said Arbuckle. So happy to see him starting again this week. But then the quarterback news continues around the league. Dustin Crum gets another start for the Ottawa Red Blacks this week. Drew Brown not quite ready to go. Zach Collaros left the game with what we all assume is a concussion last week for the Bombers, and he is not ready yet this week. So Chris Streveler gets a start in Winnipeg. And to the surprise, maybe of everybody, James Morgan's been the quarterback in Montreal the past couple of weeks. I know Davis Alexander is getting closer. I had no idea McLeod Bethel-Thompson was close to coming back at all. But surprise, he's starting on Saturday against the Saskatchewan Roughriders. Trey, out of these quarterback situations, MBT, Crum, Streveler, how do you think these changes? I know Crum's played a couple weeks in a row, but initial thoughts on those from a fantasy perspective, the differences there for those offenses.
Well, man, you're going to have some cheap quarterback plays, which we might talk about in a little bit, right? Streveler's like 8,000 something. I didn't see what MBT or Crum was. Crum's been lighting it up pretty good, though. He's been valuable with his legs. 2 rushing touchdowns last week, on top of his passing. So there's definitely some fantasy there. Streveler's got the same potential. He is 2-0 as a starter this year, if you want to look at that kind of angle. So when he is in and gets a whole week of prep, he could be better. And MBT is that sneaky guy too, right? He could get you some points here and there. Ottawa's was the team that started pretty hot and then injuries caught up to them. So when they're getting healthy, we were talking like a week or two ago that all the receivers were coming back. Now
from Montreal,
From Montreal, yeah. So now we got a quarterback under center who might be a little bit more experienced than James Morgan, right? So there's some interesting fantasy plays, and with some of the injuries still looming, makes things here.
Yeah, I think, there was some discussion in the Discord earlier today about the cheaper quarterback option. So the pricing wise, Dustin Crum, 10,800. Chris Streveler's at 8,000. MBT is 9,000, I believe. So kind of in the middle there. How I would rank the three of those, I mean, Crum has to be at the top after what he did last week and what he's done in his starts. I prefer paying up for him. I think Streveler is kind of the light version of Crum, like Crum light, right? Like they're both very mobile quarterbacks. I think Crum is the better passer and has better options there to work with than Streveler does. And McLeod Bethel Thompson, I'm not touching that with a 10-foot pole against the Saskatchewan Roughriders, who have been quite the ball hawks lately, and I don't have much confidence in MBT's ability to throw the ball this season. Other notable news, the Argos off the bye, coming off the bye. Spencer Brown has been the hot hand at running back the past couple of weeks. He's been limited with hip injury in practice. So I think that's one of the situations, you're just talking about of injury situations looming. Is it Brown? Is it Mac Mahon, et cetera, for the Argos at running back? The Montreal running back situation clearing up a little bit. It's been a kind of, is it Sean Thomas Erlington, Travis Tice, Stevie Scott III in there a little bit? Well, now STE, Thomas Erlington on the 6-game injured list for Montreal. So Travis Tice gets the start. The Tice train is back in charge there, but last time he started, we still saw Stevie Scott III take some of the reps there. So it's probably still going to be running back by committee, and that doesn't change much. And in Saskatchewan, to round out the injury reports here, I think everybody's waiting to see when Keon Schaefer-Baker and Sam Emelis get back out onto the field, and they are not quite ready to go yet this week. So I would expect the likes of Tommy Neild and Joe Ajo to continue to get starts as the Canadian receivers there for them. That's your quick, 5-minute injury report, running through all the notables there. I think we're ready to get into the main event of the fantasy segment, which is our second ever CFL Fantasy Game Zone lineup draft. Last week we kicked off this new format. People seem to like it, so let's pull it up here. And basically, just to recap, for those that didn't catch the last episode, Trey and I are going to go back and forth and draft our weekly Game Zone lineup. So we have that $70,000 budget as you would. We have a defense, quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, and a flex play, and but we're not going to pick any of the same players as each other. So I take a player, he's off the board for Trey, and we have to build our lineups accordingly. We'll put it out on the socials again this week for people to vote on how they think the matchup is going to go, and then we'll score the matchup in total. Last week, I pulled for those watching the video version, I pulled up last week's rosters up on the board. I did not even calculate the point totals for last week because I did not want to see how badly I was embarrassed. Trey, you wiped the floor with me last week. Dustin Crum is your captain with 60-something points because he put up 30 plus. Almost scored more than my entire lineup combined. So I bow to you, sir. The people, none of them believed in you. Everybody voted in my favor in the Discord. I think one person voted for you on X. That might have been you. I don't know.
I didn't vote. I honestly didn't vote. So I didn't even see the vote on X, so I'll be.
You got 1 vote of confidence last week, and whoever that was must have known something because, kudos to you. Wiped the floor with me last week.
I keep receipts to all those, to all our friends in the Discord.
Well, let's see if he can continue that momentum and carry it over into a 2-game win streak here. As the loser last week, I get the first pick off the board this time around. I gave you the first pick last week for the first one. I think it's only fair that I get it this time around.
Yep.
And this is a tough week to make a lineup. We were talking about this in the Discord earlier this week or earlier today as well. I think there's 6 different running backs I want in my lineup, and I can only fit a max of 3 of them, which is difficult. There's a couple of different quarterback options I like, and then filling in the receivers in between. We're going to do snake draft order. We can draft positions in any order. I will kick things off. It's not the flashiest play here, but I think it's the value play I need to secure, because any variation of lineups that I try to do requires this guy to be in my lineup, and I cannot figure out what I'm happy with without him. So I've been backing him all season long. Now he is the definitive starter, even though some reps are going to go to his backup. But give me Travis Tice at running back for $2,500 as the first pick off the board. Like I said, I love all of the running back plays for the most part this week, but at $2,500 for a starter who should get, a handful of opportunities, it's a tough matchup with Saskatchewan, sure. But I think that sets a lot of flexibility for the rest of my lineup, because some of the other plays I might want, I might not be able to take if Trey takes them here. And this gives me more options. So that's first guy off the board. Was he in contention for your lineup at all, Trey?
No.
I didn't think so, but I had to be sure, right?
No,
so.
I don't know why he's not on my radar. Like the price, yeah, 100% I see it. But I got some other options I think that will fit in nicely, and I can get under the cap. So let's kick things off. We're not going to go with the defense this week here in round 1. I got to take, I think, the guy who is the number 1 choice under center. Give me my captain from last week, Dustin Crum. And I'll even tell you right now, I'm putting the C next to his name right now, right there, because there's no other option. Almost 70 points last week, or high 60s. What was it? Or 34.9 times that by 2. Yeah, they're just almost 70 points. That's insane. That's almost more than my NFL team.
Dustin Crum was definitely up there. If I didn't go Tice as my first overall, I should have honestly probably gone Crum, because I figured you'd try to run it back. Got in my head a little bit of I could see Trey taking Strevler. You love Chris Strevler. I could see you taking him and running with that play this week. So I might get Crum to fall back to me. But he's right up there in conversation with some of the other high-end quarterback plays, which I might talk about here in a moment. He has the highest floor, I think, out of anybody. He rushes 60 yards a game. Mm-hmm. All you need is, 225 passing to hit 15 points on the week, and then add in a rushing touchdown, add in a passing touchdown. Dustin Crum is a fantasy gold mine. So great first pick for you off the board there. And we go back to you to kick off round 2.
I do have to point out, I was pretty confident. I had a hunch that maybe you would take Crum just to steal him from me. So Strevler was my backup plan. And then you're like, I have an idea of somebody you wouldn't take. Well, I'm going to take Crum. So that kind of opened the door up a little bit for me there. But anyway, I'm going to go off a little bit of a change here. A guy that I think I drafted in our league early on. I thought I did. And he lit it up a little bit last week, and he ended up being a target of Dustin Crum. Give me Khalil Pimpleton. He picked up 16.5 points last week. Didn't get the touchdown. I think he was 95 passing yards. Pretty solid. 7.5 thousand. That's going to give me some savings to get a couple other good receivers and running backs, I think.
I like the pick. Yeah, he had a huge one late at the end of the game that helped them pull off that Crum back, as they call it. Khalil Pimpleton, up and down season, a lot of potential for him coming into this year. He's had a few bright spots. I think he gets often overlooked in that offense, but I think Crum and him do seem to have a bit of a better connection. He has actually had his best games of the season with Dustin Crum as the starting quarterback, which is something of note when you look at these guys of who was good with Drew Brown, who was good with Dustin Crum. I like the pick, Pimpleton, at a modest $7,500 there as well. Now we go back to me for 2 picks here, and I admit I got to rework my lineup a little bit because I did have the Dustin Crum play in there at 10,800. So now I'm going to have to spend more on a quarterback, or I could go the Chris Strevler route potentially. I'm not touching MBT with a 10-foot pole. Let me kick off with my kind of one of my cheaper wide receiver plays here, though. And that is, maybe not so cheap, but $9,200. Let's go with the man who's a touchdown scoring machine, and that is Jake Herslow of the Toronto Argonauts. He has been an absolute monster for fantasy ever since he burst onto the scene a couple of weeks ago into a backup role, got thrust into a starting role. And I'm just pulling up his stats here to mention 6 touchdowns in his last 4 games ever since he has really gotten into the lineup, into a prominent role. He's finished as a wide receiver 1 and 2 his last 2 weeks. He's getting a solid number of targets, and there was some talk of, how do they fit all of these pieces in there for the Argos? Well, Devaris Daniels is out on 6 game now. DeMonte Coxey's on the 6 game. So Herslow is in a starting spot until those guys come back. And I think he will make a high ceiling play for my lineup this week at 9,200. Now I go back and forth and still trying to fill in the other aspects of my lineup here. I know I have to save $15,000 probably for one of my quarterback options, so I don't need to necessarily go that route right now. So I'm going to take my defense off the board to make sure I get this one, and I'm going with the Hamilton Tiger Cats back-to-back weeks at $5,600. Last week, 2 weeks ago, they put up 10 points. Last week, they put up 12 points. This week, they faced Chris Strevler. Yes, he sometimes does better off of a start when he has a full week to practice in that regard than he does coming into a game. But we've seen him throw his fair share of interceptions, and the Ticats are one of the best teams in the league at that. So I think they are going to be hungry to get after Chris Strevler and maybe have a little bit of a revenge for one of those Grey Cups so many years ago, back in, I believe, the 2019 Grey Cup matchup. I don't know if any of those guys are actually still on the team, but Jake Herslow and the Ticats defense, I take anybody off of your board with that one?
Yeah, I was definitely thinking of Herslow. I had him kind of worked in my lineup. I'm really happy that he's back off the bye for our podcast fantasy, because I think that was one reason why I had such a bad score last week, because he's been kind of one of my bright spots. That was definitely one. Hamilton defense, I hemmed and hawed about. I don't know if that's where I would have went, but maybe price-wise, yeah, versus because a couple of the cheaper ones are going up against some tough teams. So, yeah. So let's go here. I'm actually going to – I'm going to go back to a guy I took last week as well, coming off a decent week, not as good as the week before, 8.5 points against the Blue Bombers, only 45 yards. I'm going to go with Tommy Neal, a little bit of a value play, 6.5, gets Montreal. Haven't been impressed with Montreal. Like, Montreal's been kind of – I can't see Montreal's D being much better than Winnipeg's right now, so I could see him opening it up a little bit. And I think he's a good target when those bigger guys are getting kind of Johnson and Melissa and all those guys, when they're healthy and going, they're getting double, triple covered. So he might be a good option there. Oh, man. You know what? Heck with it. Got to stick with Saskatchewan here on my next pick. Give me the God of Thunder. Give me AJ Ouellette as my first running back. I'm kind of hesitant to take another guy that's a similar price, just because who knows how many times he's going to touch the ball. But I think Ouellette a couple of weeks back-to-back against the Bombers and the face mask and all these things, he looks like he might run angry on Saturday.
You took Tommy Neal off my board. He was actually who I was going to slot in. I had a different plan with a higher-priced receiver until you took Crum off the board for me. So I was going to fall back to Tommy Neal because I think he is one of the better value plays. Again, should be starting this week, $6,500. He's had a touchdown in 3 of his 5 starts, gets a couple of targets, 5+ targets his last 3 games. Tommy Neal, very underrated value play there. And AJ Ouellette is still one of those running backs that I just don't believe in when I should. Like, he is consistently solid. He's never going to be that high total guy. He's going to get you over 10 points. He's going to get you over 12 points. He's only gotten you over 20 once this season. So, it depends what you need in your lineup. Sometimes you need that reliable 15-point guy. Sometimes you need that boomer bust. And that's honestly, as I'm playing fantasy throughout the week, I set my lineup for game 1. Then I change my entire lineup after game 1, what's left of it potentially based on how I did. If I didn't score as much as I thought I would, I'm probably switching out some for a bit higher boomer bust plays to potentially make up some ground. Whereas if I'm comfortable with what I did on night 1, then I might go for a more stable AJ Ouellette in the second day, if he's even playing the second day. I actually don't. Yeah, he's the last game of the week. So AJ Ouellette for you, Tommy Neild for you. That brings it back to me here for my next two picks. And I'm going to go with, I mean, how can I not go with a guy who's got to be a front runner for the West MOP here to round out my running back plays? And that's Justin Rankin of the Edmonton Elks, who rushed for over 200 rushing yards last week, 204 yards, 2 touchdowns on the ground. It was his third week of over 30 points on the year. He has been on an absolute tear lately, and he did that against the Stamps run defense. That's supposed to be one of the best ones in the CFL. We've talked a lot about how Rankin is an elite pass catching running back. He put up 32 points last week with not a single target, but was all just on the ground. So, yeah, I want Justin Rankin in my lineup for sure, without a doubt. And that's definitely going to fill in, make up for the Tice value play that I'm not expecting a massive total from Travis Tice. I'm expecting a moderate for the value, and I want that big boom of Justin Rankin. I'm going to round out my running back plays, and then I'm going to come back and figure out who I'm doing as my last wide receiver based on what I can afford after that. I'm going Brady Oliveira. Let's run it back as last week. You took Ouellette, I took Oliveira. Let's do it again this week. Brady Oliveira has the most glorious matchup you can possibly have, which is the Hamilton Tiger Cats, who every single running back has just elevated their game beyond what they normally score. I think last I checked, it was like 5 or 6 points higher than they typically score against any other team. Last week, you were concerned. I was a little concerned. What does the game plan look like for Oliveira? Well, he got like 20 touches or something like that last week's game. They didn't amount to a whole ton because the Riders' run defense was pretty good against it. The Ticats' defense is not. If the Ticats somehow shut Brady Oliveira under 10 points, I will be absolutely floored. Because I think that is his floor easily, is like 15 points in this matchup against Hamilton. And I think he's somebody who could score 30. Those are my so I'm going to 3 running backs. I'm going to running back in my flex play this week. Take 2 of the highest priced ones off the board with Rankin and Oliveira. Did you have either of those in mind as your second running back?
If I could fit Oliveira, I was maybe, but I'm so hesitant on the touches, man. Like, I get it. It could be, I hate that it could be 200 yards or nothing. There's no, kind of thing. Rankin, he's one that's definitely snuck up on me because I know there's been, I don't pay attention sometimes too much where I guess I get caught where I'm like, well, I thought everyone was talking about this leak guy, and now Rankin's all got it, almost of the carries, right? So I've always was a little bit hesitant to go to Edmonton just because of the potential dual back, but Rankin's definitely looking great this time, and definitely might fit him. I don't know. I haven't decided yet. We're getting close to playoff time. I ran my roster last week without changing it. I don't know. I haven't clinched a playoff spot yet, so we might change it. So Rankin might get in there afterwards. But to me, oh boy. So I got 2 picks here. Let's go first. I'm going to go with the running back. I have one more running back spot that I took last week, and surprisingly, actually almost picked up 15 points against the BC Lions' former team. Did that back ever play for BC?
Yeah, I think he was with BC last season.
So now we're running it back here. Give me stand back again to fill out my running back here. Quite impressed with that. He was one of those guys I never had a lot of faith in, and then I pick him once, and it was pretty solid. I don't know the whole point versus value thing that you do, but I'm sure it was okay.
I was floored last week that the number of people that I saw that actually picked William Stanback in their lineup, because there's just nothing that I've seen from him all year that had made me even consider putting him in there. And then, of course, he goes and scores the touchdown last week, and you're looking like a genius for doing so. And that's the way fantasy works. And the one positive I'll give him is he's very clearly taken over the lead role again at running back. There was not early in the season, it was like, is Adebaboye going to get more carries? Is he not? Stanback has been the leading guy over the last number of weeks, and he does have over 10 points in 3 of his last 4.
Yeah, for sure. I like it. And then last and certainly not, well, I guess I got 2 more spots, but my last pick here, my flex spot, I'm not going to go with another running back. I'm going to go with a receiver. And it's not I could see this kind of being a crazy revenge-ish kind of game. Not revenge, crazy. Like, I don't think it ended in bad terms, but a guy coming back to play his former team. Give me Kenny Lawler. I think that, him and Bo are going to pick this Winnipeg defense apart. I had tempted to take Bo even as quarterback, but, the price thing, and then Crum might be a better value with the running and everything. But yeah, if I woke up the next morning and I heard that Kenny Lawler had 3 touchdowns against the Bombers, I wouldn't be shocked. So give me Lawler.
I was trying to fit him into my lineups any way I could this week. It's just hard when I really believe in the running back plays of Oliveira, Rankin, Butler in that category as well. Spencer Brown, we haven't even talked about him. If he's starting, I'd want to fit him in at 9,500. It's really hard to fit in Lawler like that. But yeah, Lawler is back on track he had quieted down a little bit midway through the season, and now he seems unstoppable again. And yeah, a little bit of a revenge facing his former team. I think that definitely plays a little bit into it as well. Now we get back to me to round out my 2 picks. I'll take my quarterback off the board here first. I could go for the cheap Chris Streveler play, but I don't think I'm going to do so. So it comes down to a lot of $15,000 quarterbacks for me, because I don't think I like the Fajardo play a whole ton. To light it up big time as my captain, not touching. I guess Caleros is not playing. It's Streveler, right? But it really comes down to the Arbuckle versus Nathan Rourke debate. And I can't believe that here in the middle of 2025, I'm actually saying this is a debate, because ask me coming into the year, it's Nathan Rourke every single day, no question about it. Now it's a little bit more challenging. Rourke versus Ottawa, they shut him down a decent amount last week. It was an underwhelming pick. Nick Arbuckle has been lights out, absolutely, as of late. And yes, Edmonton's defense is starting to shut things down more. But if Arbuckle's going to be throwing as many times a game as he does, plus I get the stack with Jake Herslow at wide receiver, I think I got to go with the Nick Arbuckle play. I tried to stack all the BC Lions last week with 3 of them in my lineup. That didn't work out for me. Nervous about the rematch to some degree, so I'm going to go with Nick Arbuckle as my quarterback for $15,000. He's going to be my captain as well. And that leaves me with $7,800 to figure out a wide receiver play here. And there's a few different ways I could go. Guys I'm looking at in that category that I can afford. Pimpleton would probably be up there, but you took him off the board already. Carrick Wheatfall seemed to have a connection with Streveler when he started back in week 2. He's at $7,200. David Unger sometimes, can produce, but I already have Jake Herslow, so I don't like that play. Robustelli had some big gains last week. Could go all the way down to Edmonton. OJ Hilaire at $4,500 has produced lately, but that leaves about $2,000 off the board. So I'm going to go with Carrick Wheatfall here and just bank on, Chris Streveler trying to establish that connection with him again. I think Streveler's style is going to be run it and gun it. And I think if you're looking for the gun it passes, I think a couple of them are going to go Wheatfall's way. And I think there's decent touchdown potential there for him. So that's going to round out my wide receiver plays for this lineup. You got a defense left.
Yeah. And I don't have a lot left with the price value left, because I got 7,000 roughly, 6.5. Because Hamilton can't take, but I really like the Hamilton play, because I couldn't be shocked if Streveler threw 3 picks as well with that running gun. Winnipeg's too expensive. Montreal's playing Saskatchewan. That's a bleh. BC playing Ottawa. No. Where do we go? You know what? I'm going pretty Ottawa heavy, so give me the Red Blacks for 4,000. Simply best of the available, I think, because I can't imagine anyone being much better than the other right now with what's available.
That is an Ottawa heavy lineup for sure. 4 guys from the Red Blacks.
Yeah. I don't like going too heavy one team, but I think Crum was doing good. Stanback was a pleasant surprise. Stacking Pimpleton on there. And yeah, I guess if you count the Ottawa defense, but not ideal. Yeah, I'm probably not going to run this lineup for realsies. So I'm going to make some changes, but I like it for our
When we're talking about, shifting out some of those options, we mentioned the running back or some of the injury unknowns because we're recording this Wednesday night. If it comes out that Spencer Brown at 9,500, who I know you picked a couple weeks ago and we're really high on, is the starter again this week against Edmonton, would you consider swapping Stanback out for him to diversify your lineup? Or
yeah, probably. I that's one way I definitely want to go. It's just the health of it, and I don't want to, for that. Also, I might even change one of my receivers for her slow. Honestly, if I had that option, and then probably swap my defense if I was going that way. But for our sake, that'd probably be the one change I would make.
Any other honorable mentions that we haven't talked about that you would have liked to fit in your lineup that couldn't?
No, I think we talked about most of them, man. Either you took them from me or we mentioned them.
Yeah, I think we covered most of them. Other guys I've tried to fit in a few lineups. Keyshawn Johnson continues to produce for the Riders at wide receiver. I do think BC is still going to put up points on the board in this rematch with Ottawa. So, Keon Hatcher, does he get back on track? Somehow he still finished as a top 10 receiver last week, despite only 11 points. That's how bad the week was for everybody across the board. And Justin McInnes was the hot hand that won a lot of people their weeks last week with, I think, like 27 points there. And Keandre Smith, his price actually dropped after an underwhelming performance. He's now at $10,000, and I could see him having a big week against the Bombers also. Those are our lineups for this week. If you're tuning in live, let us know in the comments section right now while you're watching live who you think is a better lineup. We'll put it out on socials as well. For people to vote, and then we'll total it again, and we'll see if Trey can go back to back or if I can steal one here. I can't wait till we get Adam back in here also to do a 3-person draft. That will just be a fun level of chaos to even further degree. But that's our fantasy picks for the week. Now we move into our betting half of the show. 4 games on the schedule. But before we get into them, do you want to recap where we're at for our betting standings for the year, Trey?
Oh, yeah, man. It's been so great. Okay, so last week against the spread, Adam went 3-1. I went 2-2. You went 1-3. The coin went 1-3 in straight pick'em. Over under though, you did go 3-1, Ryan. Good job there. While me and Adam went 1-3. Season totals for spread, I'm 32-22. Adam's 29-25. You're 24-30. The coin is 30-24. The over-unders, though, you finally took the lead and are the only one above 500 there. 27-26-1, while Adam and I are 25-28-1. So overall win percentage, coins leading the way, but I think pick'em's a little easier. And only doing just pick'em, not over-unders. But I'm at 53.3, Adam's at 50.5. You're catching up, 47.7. You're getting to that 500 mark. We're breaking even.
Oh, we've got the... Are you leading the way? Sorry, are you leading the way on the spread, or is Adam?
Spread, I am.
Okay, well then we've got the king of the spread and we've got the king of the over-under here. So between the two of us, we've got you all set for your betting picks this week. Just ignore the fact that I'm below 500. But anyways, 4 games on the schedule. Let's start off with the first one here, Winnipeg at Hamilton. We have the line here as 7 points for the Ticats. You were mentioning that might have changed over the last few hours based on Chris Streveler being announced as the starter for Winnipeg. But I think we're going to roll with these lines we already had. We can talk about, how high we would go on them. Over under at 52 on this game. You're the betting expert here. So what are you thinking?
Yeah. Oh, no, it's at 7 still. Maybe I was wrong.
Okay.
Maybe I got the Ottawa BC one mixed up, which we'll talk about later. This game's interesting. I don't know. I don't think Streveler changes it that much, but also do I think Caleros would lose by more than 7? Maybe. So that's where it's really tough here. I will go over because I wouldn't be shocked if Hamilton put up 30 plus on their own. And then Winnipeg would just have to put up 20. Give me the Winnipeg plus 7. I think this one will be close. But like I said, watch Lawler get 3 or 4 touchdowns against his old team.
Yeah, half these lines this week suck for me. I am never good with them. Adam's tuning in from the middle of the wheat field and says, we said you're the king of the spread, I'm the king of the over-under, and he says the king of the wheat is listening. So even when Adam's not here to chat with us, he's still listening in to hear what we say and commenting in the comments, as we love to see. Hi, Adam. Over under 52. Adam did send in his picks for us. He went with Hamilton to cover the 7 points. He went with the under. So you guys are both split on these, which means I kind of have to break the tie, and that scares me. I'm gonna go with the Winnipeg +7 as well, because I think this is the prime matchup for a Chris Streveler start. This is the prime matchup for Brady Oliveira to run all over the Ticats. I said earlier today that I would have actually in most matchups started Terry Wilson this week if I was the Bombers, just to see what he's got. I'm kind of over the Chris Streveler experiment to some degree, but this is the best matchup for Streveler. So I think the Bombers can cover that point total. I'm going to go with the over. I'm going to agree with you and go with the over on this one, because I think they could be some points on the board and a couple of touchdowns for both sides. We move on to the second game here. Ottawa BC rematch. Ottawa with the big win last week over BC, so surely they have to be favored in the rematch between a 4-8 team and a 5-7 team. It's got to be a close spread, right, Trey?
No. Which is wild when Ottawa beat them a week ago by a point, right? In Ottawa, but I guess BC's home field advantage is 10 points. That's crazy. This is a very interesting line. I don't know. Is Vegas okay? Is Vegas still there? I don't know.
Look, there's a lot going on in the world right now. Okay.
Yeah, so much going on, and now Vegas has just abandoned the later game here. I don't know how you can go. I guess they must listen to this podcast and say, oh, Ryan always says team split back-to-back, so BC must just kill Ottawa here. What's changed? Is there any injuries on Ottawa that I missed? Did anyone come back in BC?
Nothing really notable that I've seen, no.
It's still Crum. There's no big comebacks. I got to take Ottawa +9.5, and I would even really look at Ottawa money line, because that's got to be +200, +300 or something, which – I can hold. Yes, +370. So I can wholeheartedly understand you're splitting back-to-backs, but these two teams just played. Ottawa beat them by 1. I can see BC winning, but by 10? I don't know. Maybe Nathan Rourke plays pissed off, but that doesn't always mean it's a good thing either. Didn't both of these teams put up 50 points last week? So give me the over.
Yeah, you and I are in lockstep again this week. I'll almost always take the underdog in a large spread, because there's so many more potential outcomes that lead to getting it right. You're really banking on that BC comes out firing, that they play a full 60-minute game, that Ottawa, comes out flat, that they don't get that late comeback in garbage time to go and cover the points. To me, it's just logical to take Ottawa +9.5. I'm not quite there with you on Ottawa money line. I don't hate it based on, you're probably going to make decent bank off of doing that. BC money line, I imagine, doesn't pay that particularly well. So I would take the chance of potentially Ottawa. But I think BC wins this game. I think it's by less than 9.5. So I'll take Ottawa to cover. And yeah, the last BC's given up 86 points in their last 2 games combined. So I think an over-under line of 56 is pretty safe to go with the over. Adam's also agreeing with the over, but he's taking BC. He thinks the Lions are going to come back at home and come out firing on this. I really don't know why it's the 9.5 line. That's crazy. Home field advantage, home and home matchup. Those are the only 2 variables that I can think of that play into that, and I wouldn't swing it that far based on that.
There's Snoop Dogg's back at halftime. I don't know. I don't get it. But, yeah, no, that one's crazy. But, yeah.
Interesting, just taking a look at the standings as we talk about each of these matchups as we go through them as well. We can come back to Winnipeg and Hamilton afterwards maybe, but Well, you know what? Let's just bring it right into the conversation for all four of these teams we just talked about. Winnipeg 6-6, right in the middle of the West. They've lost 2 to Saskatchewan. They've lost 3 to Winnipeg or to Calgary. So it seems like we're probably looking at Winnipeg being either the third place, fourth place, heck, even fifth place team in the West, because now Edmonton's coming on strong. BC, if they can pick up a win here, that would tie them with Winnipeg if Winnipeg did lose. So the Lions are 2 points back of them right now. Edmonton is tied with BC currently for that crossover spot. Out east, Hamilton, if they can pick up a win over Winnipeg, that probably puts them pretty well in the driver's seat to win the East Division with all the injury concerns from all those other teams. But Ottawa's right in the mix now all of a sudden as well. They're 2 points back of Montreal, and they're tied with Toronto. So there's a lot of crucial matchups this week where things could go many different ways. And I think this second half of the season, I'm hoping it continues in this chaotic trend and we don't have just a clear-cut state of the league 3 weeks from now. I want this to ride all the way to the finish line where any of these teams could still make the playoffs and anybody, most for art, could suddenly fall off.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I think the only two locks, if you want to call them locks, it's got to be Saskatchewan and Calgary, because even if Saskatchewan loses the next 6, they're 10-8, and that's probably good enough for third or second, depending on how the rest of the West is. And Calgary too. I think I saw some the probable odds. Both of them were like at 99%, maybe in the playoffs or whatever. So, but yeah, I think it's crazy. But then this is a year where I would advocate the one division so hard, because you have an all-out battle for third in that one. Third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth would all be 2 games between Winnipeg and Ottawa. Like, you have all 7 of those teams battling for those 4 last playoff spots. If you give Calgary 1 and 2, or Saskatchewan, Calgary 1 and 2, right? So that's an all-out madness to me, more than. But I mean, you still have it. I guess you still have 3 teams battling out for that one spot in the West, and then you have essentially all 7 teams still battling for that crossover spot too. So it's wild.
Yeah, I think it was Mike was texting me after the Banjo Bowl this week and said, "Is Saskatchewan really that good?" And I said, I mean, maybe they're like a solid all-around football team, and the rest of the league outside of Calgary kind of just sucks. This year is what it feels like. Like, everybody has had their woeful moments. We only have 2 teams right now, 3 teams that are over 500 on the season. That's Hamilton, Calgary, and Saskatchewan in a 9-team league. So continue the chaos. And as we move on to our third game, I think these are 2 teams that are right in the middle of all of that chaos. The Edmonton Elks on the road face the Argos, who are coming off the bye. Toronto picked up that, or before their bye, Toronto picked up that huge last-second win over the Ticats. They also beat BC the week before, so they're coming off a 2-game win streak. Suddenly have themselves 2 points back of Montreal in that East Division. And then Edmonton has now won, 3 of their last 4 or something like that. And they're now tied with BC for 4th when everybody was riding them off out west. So massive game for these 2 teams. I'm honestly a little bit sad that they play each other this week, because I feel like I'm on the Toronto playoff push, Nick Arbuckle MOP train. I'm on the Edmonton train, and one of them has to lose this week unless they tie. But Argos 3.5-point favorites at home, over underline at 56.5. What are you thinking for this game?
Oh man, this is insane. So I like to look at sometimes the splits. Toronto's 2-4 at home, but Edmonton's 2-4 on the road, so that's no help. But Edmonton 4-2 against the East Division too. From my quick math, that was their first win against the Western Division against Calgary last week. Toronto is 2-4 in their division and 2-4 against the West. Shoot, I was leaning Toronto until I said that. Give me Edmonton. Give me Edmonton the +3.5. I think it'll be a field goal or less. And another one, I wouldn't be shocked to look at the money line if you want a couple underdogs with Ottawa and Edmonton, because I wouldn't be shocked again if Edmonton stole this one with their success against the East and how well Cody Fajardo's been playing. I'm going to take, these over-unders. I saw something that the last few weeks, like the scoring was averaging 52 points or 53 points a game. So 56 isn't crazy. Give me the over again. I think I've taken it twice now, haven't I? 3 times? I don't know. I don't like taking the over too much, but there's been a lot of scoring this year.
You've taken the over on all 3 games so far this week. Adam's the only one who's taken an under, and he takes it again. He's going with the under, and he's going with Edmonton with you as well. This is going to be a tough test for that Edmonton defense that I think really has turned the corner. And it was a little bit like last week's win over Calgary was huge for the Elks. And that was surprising because we've talked every week about how Calgary, outside of a couple of games in freak conditions, really hadn't had a dud yet. And they had an absolute dud against Edmonton, who was coming off of losing Jake Seresna, Niles Morgan, etc., to the 6-game injured list. And you thought, oh, that defense isn't going to get anything going. They had their best pressure on the quarterback all season last week. So what do they do now against Arbuckle? Can they slow Nick Arbuckle down? I think it's going to be tough for sure. But that Edmonton defense seems to find a way to get everything done. And I think Fajardo just giving them a bit of a rest by, playing good game manager football for the most part has helped that. They've shut down Calgary's offense. They've shut down Saskatchewan, Hamilton, Ottawa, Montreal. Edmonton has shut other teams down. They shut Toronto to 20 points just back in week 11. So I'm going to take the Elks to cover here as well. I could see this going either way, but I'm going to take the 3.5 points, and I'm going to agree with Adam and take the under on this one just based on Edmonton seemingly finding a way to shut teams down. And I'm not high on their offensive efficiency necessarily either. That brings us to our final game of the week, which is the Montreal Alouettes visiting Saskatchewan Roughriders. Riders 8-point favorites at home. Has that changed at all from when we first looked at it, now that we know McLeod Bethel Thompson is starting?
What I have now on Cool Bet, it's the 7.5.
Okay, so, we'll go with
there's the error. It's Montreal +8. Not both odds can't be minus. That's my bad.
I'll fix it. I got it.
I was the banner guy today, guys. I'm sorry.
That's all good. Thank you for getting this ready. Montreal +8. That's better.
There we go. Yeah. But this one, only 0.5 point difference between Bethel Thompson and James Morgan. And that can honestly just be betting line that a lot of people taking Montreal at that +8 that's made it move, not necessarily the quarterback. I don't think the quarterback's going to make much of a difference in this one on Montreal's side, to be honest. I know I said potential in fantasy, but I got to go Saskatchewan. In Saskatchewan, Saturday night, harvest is getting done. Those rowdy Saskatchewaners are going to be in full force, right, at Mosaic, and Olette's going to bang his helmet or do whatever he does. So give me -8 Saskatchewan. I will go the under because this one I could see 30-10 in Saskatchewan. Can't go over on all 4.
I agree with you. Once again on this game, I'm going with the exact same thing, Saskatchewan and the under. This time I'm comfortable taking the -8. Montreal they've lost their mojo. They don't have that there based on all the injuries they've had. And I know they're getting guys back, sure, but this is a team that at the start of the season, I think after week 2 or week 3, I had said they're going to lock up the East by Labor Day and have nothing to do in the second half of the season because I could not see how they lost a game. Now I have a hard time until Davis Alexander comes back picking them to win a game, and certainly not against the Riders at 10-2, who, outside of 2 losses to Calgary, right? I think they're undefeated against the rest of the league, and if they win this week, I believe they clinch a playoff spot. So I'm pretty comfortable taking the Riders here, even at -8. I don't have a ton of confidence in McLeod Bethel Thompson. I think we've seen what he can do earlier this season. I think a couple of interceptions are coming. I wouldn't be surprised at a defensive touchdown or 2 for the Riders, but I think it will be under because I don't think they're going to put a lot of touchdowns on the board. And, let's talk about the Trevor Harris side of things too. He hasn't looked great the last couple of weeks for the Riders against that Bombers defense. And I want to say against Hamilton a couple of weeks before that. Trevor Harris is playing his worst football of the season the last few weeks. And I kind of wonder if that's, 39-year-old Trevor Harris, second half of the season. He's been relatively healthy all season, playing a lot of games. Kind of wonder if the stamina is catching up with him a little bit. And I hope I'm wrong on that regard because they're playing very good this year. And I don't want to see them run out of steam down the stretch. But, maybe it's just the atmosphere of the Labor Day Classic and the Banjo Bowl. And a tough matchup with Calgary before that, I guess, was the one I mentioned. But I think this is going to be an under 50.5. I agree with you. 30-10 is perfectly reasonable of a total for this game. those are our betting picks for this week. Good luck on all of our betting picks. Good luck to you with yours as well. Of course, if you want any extra insight on betting picks, prop bets, we don't really talk prop bets on here, but if anybody has them and wants to throw them in the Discord community, I love answering prop bet questions because they're basically CFL fantasy, right? That's basically like essentially it's, do you think this guy is going to get 5 catches? Do you think he's going to score a touchdown, etc.? We got a few minutes left in the show. Any other major topics you want to touch on from this week around the CFL, NFL? There was the big news. You want to talk about the Bills Argos connection super quick for a few minutes? So MLSE together with the Buffalo Bills ownership group announcing a partnership between the Toronto teams and the Buffalo Bills. I think it's going to include some sort of like cross promotional merch, maybe email lists to know each other's ticket members. Supposedly Toronto in October is having a Buffalo Bills themed game against the Ticats. I have no idea what that means, and that seems a little bit weird. Apparently the Toronto Raptors might also be. This has kind of taken the social media by storm the last few days. This off of earlier this season also, all the talk about moving the schedule around for the Argos for next year. What was your initial thought on this Bills partnership?
Oh, I thought, oh boy, the numpties are gonna lose their mind. Which first off, because I'm okay. We've talked about this in our private Discord. We've talked about it in the main Discord, but it's weird. I completely understand what MLSE is doing. They are attaching themselves to essentially the biggest sports franchise in that area. It's one of, and that's the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills are going to get a new stadium. They have probably one of the best teams in the NFL right now, one of the best marketed. Half of Toronto, if you're an NFL fan, you seem to be a Bills fan, it seems like, so there's a lot of plus there. I know we joked him and Hobb. I don't think it's a slam dunk, but if MLSE wants NFL expansion or even to own part of the Buffalo Bills, this is where you have to start, right? You have to start here. Maybe Toronto expansion is not possible. Again, I don't know the economics, but if a team was going to come to Toronto, who's going to own it? Probably MLSE with Rogers and Bell, right? So, or whoever owns them right now. So that's that's the one franchise they don't have, right? They have CFL, MLB. Well, no, they have MLB, but they kind of own it. NBA, Toronto FC, Marlies. What don't they own? So, they got the World Cup coming. NFL is it, right? So that's the best they got. From a Toronto Argonaut standpoint, this could be good. It could be bad. So it depends on how your faith in MLSE, right? So, because to me it's weird. Okay, because if the Maple Leafs had an Argo crossover night, no one would care. It's 2 different sports, right? Even though they kind of compete, even though different sports do compete with each other in a way, especially if they're the same season, right? Or in the Raptors and the Leafs, they do it all the time because they share the same arena. They're Maple Leaf Sports Entertainment. The Jurassic Park is Maple Leaf Square when they have their parties, right? It's all the same thing. So that doesn't bat an eye. But I wouldn't want a Minnesota Viking night in Winnipeg. And I've seen some things that say that Seattle and BC have some kind of agreement, but it's not quite to this extent. I don't know. It's weird when it's the same sport, isn't it?
Yeah, a little bit, especially, you get 9 home games a year, and I know preseason we always talk about what are the game themes for this season. I know people in Saskatchewan always talk about, really, we're doing the same thing over and over again every year. It's like, you can come up with some cool ideas, but the Buffalo Bills themed game seems a little bit weird for me. But whatever. If it gets people in the stands, great. I agree with you. I think this partnership could be good, could have good elements, having some, an upper echelon sports franchise in the, juggernaut, I think is the word I used the other day, in the Buffalo Bills attached to you, and some cross marketing involving that. And maybe you get some extra folks interested in the Argos as a result. I think that's great. My struggle is in the lack of faith in the MLSE side of things, that they're going to take this partnership and turn it into something good for the Argos, good for the CFL, etc. Because it does seem like them getting their foot in the door, pushing the, NFL narrative the 4-down game narrative versus the 3-down game potentially. So I don't know. I don't know what to expect from it yet. I think it could be good if it's done right. Maybe this is just their way of attempting to market the Argos, and if it works, great, and if it doesn't, then I won't be too surprised.
Yeah, like I said, I got some friends in Ontario, big Bills fans. They don't care about the Argos. You know what I mean? Or the CFL. Like, I've tried joking about them to, when to watch it and all that. But it's just tough, right? Like if you're, there is something, and like again, being on the degenerate gambling side of Twitter, there's a lot of flaws with the CFL that degenerate gamblers don't like. Officiating, the not the waggles per se, but the inconsistency of calling a guy 5 yards offside 10 times a game. Who wants to bet on that, right? Or who wants to watch that? And again, CFL diehard fans, I don't care. Nick Dempsey is going to be 5 yards offside, whatever. There's somebody on the other side that's probably 5 yards offside, but I can understand it to some point. So I think this is more to try to get the NFL or Buffalo Bill fans in Toronto to care, potentially. You ain't getting anyone in Buffalo to care.
No. Adam said in the chat, are the Bills having an Argos night? Yeah, right. No, that's not happening.
And the only thing I could think of is if this is a ploy to get a game in Toronto again, or to get Buffalo there, or for MLSE to buy a part of the Bills, because I know the Bills are spending a lot of money on that new stadium, so maybe they're looking for some investing and stuff. So there's got to be something. And again, who else are you going to go to in Buffalo? Like in Buffalo, you're in New York. You're already competing with, I guess the two teams are in New Jersey, but you're competing with two big teams there. You're competing with two baseball teams, two basketball teams, three soccer teams. You got all this stuff going on. Probably Toronto is their best friend when it comes to things, because Toronto's probably, I don't know the population of Buffalo, but I'm assuming Toronto's bigger. So this is it. This is the marketing. I can understand Buffalo's biggest investor right now is going to probably be MLSE, and if they can convince a team or guys who own a hockey team, a basketball team, a soccer team, and other football team to invest, and also investing in the World Cup of soccer, I think I think this is all Bills. It's all Bills and MLSE. Now, could there be a trickle down to the Argos? Sure, I guess if MLSE makes profit, I guess that benefits the Argos at the end of the day, to some degree. But yeah, I don't know. It was weird.
It was weird, but we'll see how it plays out. Adam just reminded me actually in the chat as well. He said he has to run, but still waiting for the Banjo Bowl trophy. Yeah, the Riders won the Banjo Bowl, but the trophy was never presented. So we put it out on our socials this week of let's make a game out of it. Give us the best excuse for why the Banjo Bowl trophy was not handed out at the end of the game. We got some pretty good ones coming back that I want to read before we do the wrap up here. I did have some fun with it myself as well. I said, sorry, the Bombers sold it to pay concession staff for the Argos home game they're hosting next year. They also tried to keep it as an asset to trade for a quarterback. And they actually moved the Banjo Bowl to the October 17th game because that was a necessary schedule adjustment for next year's World Cup. Makes about as much sense as most of those. Some of the other really good ones we got on Blue Sky, Chris Lawton said, we're holding it hostage until someone explains how Brett Lauder went 5 for 5 on field goals here. Doug said left in the dishwasher. Vince said Vince Rule, Zach has it at home and he didn't pick up the phone when he was called to bring it to the stadium with him. We got a couple like that this week, actually, that were around the Zach Collaros. One from Sandra on X. Zach had the trophy at home. When asked why he didn't bring it to the game, he responded, I missed the phone call. Yeah, that one made me almost audibly laugh out loud in the grocery store. That was very well done. Those are some of the best ones we got of the week. And thanks to folks for participating. That was great. All right, let's get into wrapping things up here. It's been a fun show once again, and we'll be back again next week to do it all again with our Week 16 CFL preview, fantasy picks, and betting picks once again. If you like the new format, second week running it, I think it worked out well once again. So, if you agree or disagree, leave us a comment on the Discord, the socials, in the comments section of the video or the podcast episode. We'd love to hear your feedback on our episodes. But in the meantime, link in the episode description, join the Discord. I've plugged it enough tonight. Social media at CF Countdown Pod on X and Facebook.com/CF Countdown Pod. Also on Blue Sky, CF Countdown Pod there as well to check out the show accounts. Canadian Football Podcast Network at CF Pod Network on Twitter. Alternative Football Network at the official AFN on Twitter, or alternativefootballnetwork.com. Lots of other great shows in both of those networks there as well. You're a busy guy these days. What else are you doing, and where can people find it, Trey?
Oh, you can find me on the X at Trey MB Harness. Always got horse racing, UFC stuff, along with football. Chat with me in the Discord. I am the commissioner of our Discord, 2 Discord leagues now, I guess. The head-to-head CFL one. I'll just go a quick run by here. I think I did last week. You faced off with Mike this week, right? And Mike got the better of you. I won't say the scores. And I played Adam, actually. So it was a true civil war here. And I beat Adam there. You and Adam are now officially eliminated along with Larry. But our guy, Josh M, clinched the first official playoff spot by my math. So he's up at the top there at 12-2. I'm sitting comfortable, tied with Mike at 9-5. Mike's just got the tiebreak right now due to points. And yeah, I said you guys are unfortunately eliminated. So have fun next year, guys.
Hey, as long as I'm still ahead of Adam in the standings, that's all I care about the rest of the way. Adam and I are playing for the People's Championship. We've decided we're playing each other in the first round of the playoffs for the People's Trophy. Like, you can play for the actual prize, but yeah, no, not my year. I've been eliminated. 4th or 5th in the league in points out of 16 people, but what, a 4-9 record or 4-10 record or something like that out of that. So I guess I need to fire the defensive coordinator again, it seems, but I guess we'll have a new winner this year and they can pry the trophy from my hands.
Yeah, and then I'll just do a quick of our NFL one. Me and Mike were the two. Well, I won. Mike lost by like 2 points. But
right, Mike.
Interesting week 2 matchups. Everyone who is 1-0 is playing someone 0-1. So I'd love us all to be 1-1 going into week 3.
That's
just
fun.
having some absolute chaos here. But yeah, so the NFL has been fun, and yeah, I got some NFL picks. I went 5-1 last week. The only one I had wrong was that big 8.5 that Philly couldn't do because of Spitgate, which I'm still upset about. But other than that, yeah, check them out. I'm mostly active in the Discord, and I just tag Luke Wilson and stuff on Twitter.
So over it. I'm so over it. I'm over all the discussion, like the constant back and forth discussion between everybody trying to appease him or everybody trying to start fights with him. That's, like I could do without all of that. Yeah, other leagues, quickly, since you mentioned the other ones, CFL Podcast Fantasy League, we don't have the totals in yet, but I faced Adam in that one, so it was truly like Civil War all the way around. It was basically that Spider-Man meme where they're all pointing to each other. This week, Adam beat me in that matchup, so terrible week for me for fantasy because I lost to Adam in one league, I lost to Mike in the other, and then I lost to you in our lineup battle from the draft last week. So I lost to everybody last week and hoping for a better one this time around. And in our private draft league, you and I both had an absolutely terrible week. I had 72 points, you had 61, and somehow Adam put up 113. So clawing his way back in the standings, he's now 100 points out of second last. Go Adam. I think that's it for tonight. Thanks, everybody who tuned in live and joined us here. Thanks to all of you who are listening after the fact as well. Whatever podcast platform you are listening on, we appreciate it. If you do all the fun things, like, comment, subscribe, rate, review, share the show with your friends, share the show with your non-friends. Help us grow the show. We always appreciate that. On behalf of Trey, I'm Ryan saying thank you for listening. Take care. Have a good one. Bye.